On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, Jakob Poeltl looks like he's back, and it's kind of a huge deal.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors. It is Monday, March the 2nd. It's March, baby. We love it. The playoffs are next month. Woo! And I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for a very long time, 12 seasons on various platforms. You can follow my work over on Blue Sky. Find the show on Instagram. Join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. As always, link in the description of the podcast, 100% free to join our little Raptors community of freaks. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. And we're off and running here on a Monday edition of the podcast, talking about a Raptors win over the Wizards on Saturday. Sort of. We're not going to dig too much into the nuts and bolts necessarily of the game. We will talk about Scottie Barnes and his second half turnaround and why it's just very indicative of what a wonderfully impactful player he is. That game went from a game it looked like they might lose to literally the Wizards to a game they won comfortably, mostly because Scottie Barnes decided to, try for half a game. And we'll get into just like the very easy impact of one Scottie Barnes. We got the good, the bad, the with a look at Immanuel Quickley, who's really turned on the Jets of late. But we will start with Jakob Poeltl, who just looks so much better than he did basically at any point earlier in the season when he was ostensibly healthy, when he was on the floor and playing games. We just knew there was like this sort of thing that was missing with him, and largely it was mobility. And it seems as though whatever time off Poeltl took, the All-Star break in between his return, all of it's all lending itself to a much improved, more spry version of Jakob Poeltl. In the game against the Wizards was a great example of that. Look, it's the Wizards. You don't take anything as total gospel from a win over the Wizards. The Raptors shot 60% in this game because the Wizards are crap. You're not going to shoot 60% all the time against real teams, but the process of what's going on with Jakob Poeltl, just the eye test of how he's moving out there and the comfort he's finding, it's a huge deal. And there are like a lot of really important downstream ramifications from having Jakob Poeltl back and healthy. And look, a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of looking at the rest of this season as if Jakob Poeltl comes back and plays, that's gravy. They've figured out a way to win games without him. They figured out, hey, murray-boyles is a defensive monster. Him and Scottie Barnes can hold it down. They're not huge. They don't have the typical size you'd like from the 5 position, but those two guys are holding it down together with the addition of Mamu in there as well, making things hum on offense. Like they were making it work in a way I didn't really think they could make it work without Poeltl for an extended period of time on the sidelines, and they did that. And so while I was hopeful that we'd see Jakob Poeltl again, the nature of the back thing, the unpredictability, the sort of caginess of the team regarding Poeltl's injury, I was just like, okay, if he's back, great. If not, I'm not really counting on anything for the rest of the season. And look, we're still too early to be sort of counting any chickens right now when it comes to Poeltl. Backs are weird. We'll see if it flares up at all. We'll see if the sort of regimen of, crunches or whatever he's been doing has actually helped to sort of, mitigate the issues he's been feeling with that back throughout the season for the rest of the year. We'll see how it holds up in the playoffs when things are way more intense and the games come every other night or every, 3 nights, I guess, in the first round when there's that nice spacious break. And maybe they don't make it past the first round and we don't have to deal with the sort of every other night gauntlet that is the second round and beyond of the playoffs. But point is, the return of Poeltl just like has so many positive outlook sort of ramifications for the team that, again, I was not counting on whatsoever 3 weeks ago. And it's been great to see him kind of get back into his form. Obviously, in the game against the Wizards, 18 points, 7 of 7 from the line, 7 of 7 from the field, 4 of 5 from the line. The free throws, baby, they're falling. 10 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, a block, a plus 18 to lead the team. You love to see it. It's been nice to see Poeltl, 2 straight games now. The game against the Spurs, I thought he was fantastic, particularly on the defensive end. Nice to see the offense come around in that sort of classic, every shot he takes from 2-point range is going in efficiency, return to form as well, again, against the Washington Wizards. And I think there are like three things to me that really stand out as like the big sort of reasons why you're stoked that Jakob Poeltl is back and playing well and looking like himself. Number one, it's stylistic diversity. It's having cards to play. And it's a huge deal, particularly in the playoffs, especially, front court mixing and matching. It's kind of, a really key and instrumental part of postseason success is being able to play around with your combinations. And he gives the Raptors like up to as many as like 4 distinct ways to play at center. Of course, you have just straight up Jakob Poeltl, classic 7-foot rim protector, roll man, elbow hub, sort of drop big, typically sort of, maybe like a mid drop they kind of run him in. It's usually not like a super deep drop. Getting caught up in details. Like he's your classic, everyone's got one 7-foot big man who goes up against the other big men. He crashes the offensive glass. He, is your sort of rim protecting backline of defense in conjunction with Scottie Barnes. And you feel very good about that. Obviously, they've tested a whole lot of other ways to play at the 5 while Poeltl's been hurt this year. The Colin Murray-Boyles, Scottie Barnes duo has been unbelievable. Defensively in particular, like no one scores points on them. It's a great card to be able to play in the postseason, and really excited by, that sort of possibility long term. That said, Colin Murray-Boyles, the offensive issues have been there, and having Poeltl back to kind of offset them. So you have the sort of straight up defense look and you have the more offensive leaning look with Poeltl out there. Really good stuff. Poeltl, since he got back, the Raptors are scoring 126.7 points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. That's a huge deal. And, we sort of looked at the Raptors fall off defensively or offensively, especially in the half court in December and beyond, as sort of an RJ Barrett problem when he went down. Just as much or more, I think it was a Jakob Poeltl problem too. He starts to lose his, stability in the lower back. He starts missing time in mid to late December, and the offense falls off a cliff. And it's pretty clear when he's out there, no, he's not a traditional spacer. He's not someone who's going to inject a bunch of stretch and shooting into your lineups, but he's got a great knack for how to space on the interior, how to give guys room to get to the rim while also being there as an outlet in the dunker spot. He's a really good roll man. He's an excellent screener. He's a good passer for his position. Like, he just makes the offense run smoother, and it's nice to have that sort of offense-defense thing you can play. Obviously, Mamu has been just a delight this season. His spacing he brings, you can kind of go 5 out with him if you want, or 4 out, I guess. They're not really ever going to have 5 out on this team, but he's someone who like brings shooting in a way none of the other Raptors bigs do. And there's still the opportunities as well to play with Scottie Barnes at the 5 and whatever you want around him, whether you want to over-index on shooting, whether you want to throw maybe Mamu as your sort of nominal 4 on offense to space to the corners, whatever it is, right? Like, you have all these different ways you can play around. And in the playoffs, it's just like what you need. And having Jakob Poeltl means that the entire sort of tool chest of options is going to be open for Darko Rajakovic to rummage through when things happen in playoff series that require quick decisions and match adjustments and all of that. It's great to see. The other thing too, like talking about the playoffs is, obviously who knows, more injuries could pop up. Poeltl could, start missing time again. But right now, the Raptors are on track to have more or less their full complement of guys available. And if you can maintain that health more or less from here to the end of the year and into the playoffs, you're going to get what I think was the single most important thing to get from this season, which is a full and proper evaluation of the team as it's intended, as it was built. You have all the guys who make all the money available to play and see how they hold up to the stress test that is the NBA playoffs. And it might go horribly. It also might not, but whatever way it does go, you'll be able to say, hey, like we saw our group as it was intended play against a playoff opponent and have to go through that sort of gauntlet. And we get to glean proper, real, actionable information from that, as opposed to sort of the missing picture that would be, okay, well, we played in a playoff series, but didn't have our center. So yeah, we can draw some conclusions, but maybe not all conclusions. Having Poeltl around makes it so the conclusions you draw in the playoffs can actually be things that you can, inform your future decision-making with, which is a huge deal. And then speaking of the longer term, obviously look, like Jakob Poeltl's contract is unlikely to ever be fully salvaged into like a positive asset, right? The sort of word is out around the league, even if I think the sort of consternation over, oh my God, he's going to make $27 million is a little bit too much if he's playing up to, what he is as a player. Like, yeah, he might be a smidge overpaid, but it's also, the cap is rising, all that stuff. Like it's got the potential to be like a neutral-ish deal if he can play every year. I don't think it's ever going to be viewed as like a positive deal, but over the course of this season, it has been viewed as a active, negative, do not touch with a 10-foot pole kind of asset. And we saw that come into play and maybe save the Raptors a little bit when it came to the Domantas Sabonis stuff that was reported around the deadline. How just like taking back Poeltl was reportedly just like a no-go for the Kings and probably for some other teams as well. But if Jakob Poeltl is going to play and be on the floor and be a positive contributor, as he usually is when he's out there, you're obviously in a better position with that deal going forward. Whether he stays on your books and he's just a slightly overpaid but helpful player, or he's just like a salary who, he's not offering you a whole bunch of nothing and is maybe a guy you could sort of put into a deal for salary matching and not require yourself to add a pick or two for a team to take him on. And it's just like, okay, pure salary matching plus whatever we're attaching in sort of, the search of an upgrade, whatever it is. Like if he plays like he has over the last week and is on the floor through the end of the season, into the playoffs, that becomes a way less toxic asset to play around with this summer. And again, maybe he's just not on the team and you're all right. Well, okay, he's on the team and he's playing well and that's great. And maybe the contract is still a bit of a misread of the market and his long-term outlook and all of that. But he's not the total zero. It seemed like he might be when the sort of back was just sort of unclear in terms of the amount of severity and all of that, how long it was going to keep him out. Will it limit him for the rest of his career? All that stuff, right? And hey, like back stuff is weird. He's in his 30s. He's 7 feet tall. It may not go away for good forever, but what we've seen from Yak since he came back is a guy who at least you're not like, oh God, he is anchoring down this entire thing with this contract. He's a helpful, positive, additive player when he's on the floor. And if he's on the floor, that changes the way that contract will get viewed, especially as it gets closer to expiration year over year. So yeah, having Jakob Poeltl back, good for lots of reasons. It's really exciting to see. I'm happy for him, considering what a hell year this has been for him, and hoping he can continue to build on it. Really nice to see what he did on Saturday against, again, the Washington Wizards. We'll come back on the other side and talk about how the Raptors nearly kind of played with their food and lost to the Washington Wizards until I guess Darko Rajakovic yelled at them really hard in the halftime break, and Scottie Barnes came out and did Scottie Barnes things and made it so it was kind of a laugher by the end. We will get to that coming up in just 1 second and dive into the immense impact of one Scottie Barnes. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp, and it's always a good time to start thinking about how you can show up for the women in your life. In particular, in my case, my wife is at home taking care of our beautiful baby boy and has been fantastic and is just like an absolute natural, but I'm always trying to think of the ways that I can show up and support her and sort of be better as a partner for her. And therapy has been a great way for me to talk through all of that. Look, it's a really important thing to be able to talk about the people in your lives and the relationships you value with someone who's a neutral observer, who's got the sort of no baggage or background with what that relationship is, and can kind of just give you straight to the point advice and understand where you're coming from. It's a really beautiful thing to be able to talk about that, to sort of strengthen the relationships. In particular for me, always trying to think about how I can sort of be there and show up better for my wife. And therapy has been a really helpful thing for that. So your emotional well-being matters, and so does the well-being of those around you. And that is why you can go and find support with BetterHelp and feel lighter through therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, and see how you can better show up for the relationships that matter most to you. Back at it here on your Monday episode of the pod. And before we dive on in to Scottie Barnes and a tale of two halves from him against the Wizards, a reminder, the Locked On Raptors Every Day Club is available for you to sign up. Link in the description of the podcast. It is $5 a month. You get or $50 for the year. And you get ad-free episodes of the show every single day, plus any bonus episodes I do. Those will also be ad-free, totally uninterrupted. And it's a great way to support me. If you've liked this show for a long time, you're a daily listener, you've enjoyed the free product over the years, It does help me if you sign up for the Everydayer Club for that $5 a month or 50 for the year. And if you don't, then that's fine. Podcast still available. No issues whatsoever. If you do sign up as well, though, you get some extra perks, including joining our Locked On Discord, which is separate from our Raptors Discord. That one's staying free, but the Locked On network-wide Discord is great. It features Locked On hosts and Locked On listeners from across the globe talking sports, and we have individual chats for each sport, each team, all that good stuff. So come hang out. We'd love to see you. Again, link in the description of the podcast. All right. Scottie Barnes. Look, this has always been the case this season, at least. The Raptors go as Scottie Barnes goes, and I thought the game against the Wizards on Saturday was a pretty great example of that. A game that the Raptors were heavy favorites in, where they should have won without any sort of contest or question. And the first half was not particularly pretty, the first quarter in particular. And I really liked the IQ walk-off interview with Kayla Gray post-game, where it sounds like they got quite the scolding by Darko, which kind of rocks. You know, he talked about how Darko's got different coaching styles, and that was a side of him they hadn't seen in quite some time. And I love it. And whatever he said, there is something sort of to the power of someone who's usually a nice guy getting mean on you in a moment where it's like, oh, okay, he really must mean business here. Whatever he said, though, it kicked the Raptors into gear. In particular, it kicked Scottie Barnes into gear after a stinky first half at just 2 points, 3 assists, no boards. 1 of 4 shooting was a -4 in that first half. And it's not like I'm worried about it. It's a first half where he was a little bit sleepy against the Wizards. I get it. It's human nature. The Wizards are terrible. You can win by only kind of giving half effort most of the time. And credit to Scottie, came out in the second half and just completely flipped it on and was so good, as he has been for most of the season. And I think I've been tracking with Scottie of late because, I find catch-all metrics are, they're noisy. They're not perfect, but I do find that when you have a dude who's really kind of standing out in the catch-all metrics, the stuff under the hood, you can feel pretty good about where things sit. And I've been keeping an eye on Scottie Barnes' on-off differential over the last little while because it's been immense of late. He's been a very positive player all season long. The Raptors are 6 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the floor versus off. They win their minutes per NBA.com by 3.9 points per 100, which is a very good clip on the season. And they're a -2.1 per 100 when he's off. He is the difference between winning and losing for the Raptors, no doubt. And over the last 15 games, it's only gotten more stark. It's actually kind of insane. The Raptors are 7 points better per 100 just on offense when he's on the floor over the last 15 games, and 9 points better per 100 on defense when he's on over the last 15 games. They're winning Scottie Barnes' minutes in those 15 games by 8.8 points per 100, which is better than Detroit's season-long point differential. They are losing the minutes by 7.1 points per 100 possessions, which is not a great look for the rest of the guys on the team necessarily. And he's just been a monster impact guy. It's a plus 16 or 15.9 on-off differential in the last 15 games for Scottie. Just bonkers numbers, huge impact, which we know, but to kind of see it laid out in those numbers, in those terms, is kind of nuts. When you compare him to MVP candidates, over the last 15 games, he's on par with those guys. Over the course of the season, he's just a tier below the very, very most elite guys. Cade Cunningham, his on-off differential plus 7.9 when he's on the floor versus off. Nikola Jokic, my God, plus 15.9. Of course, he's insane. Kawhi Leonard, plus 10.5. Wemby, plus 14. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, plus 10.9. And so Scottie is punching literally at Jokic's level over the last 15 games in terms of on-off impact. And over the course of the season, he's just a smidge below that sort of MVP tier of guys, which is really crazy stuff. And obviously the defense really holds up a lot of this. But like I said, the offense is much better when he's out there too. 7 points per 100. The difference between when he's on the floor versus off is a middle of the road okay offense versus the worst offense in the NBA. Same goes for the defense as well. It goes from middle of the road, okay, pretty solid defense to, oh God, this is one of the best defensive teams we've ever seen when he's on the floor. He's had that much impact this season. And it's been really cool to see him kind of grow into that. Obviously, I think the circumstances around him are better than they have been in the past for him to succeed. Having the supplemental creation around him, having a healthy Immanuel Quickley this season, which like they just didn't have for most of last year, at least not in the part of the season where they were trying. Brandon Ingram obviously has been a huge addition to the half court offense, just as someone who can take on reps and take on the sort of, he's like a high pitch count guy. He's like the perfect third, fourth starter in a rotation, Brandon Ingram is, to kind of take the burden off and make it so your ace doesn't have to go 7 innings every single night because you got guys behind him. I'm doing baseball references because I'm very excited about baseball, but the point stands. Like, Scottie's just in a better position to succeed. The team around him makes more sense, and he's coupled that better context with just like streamlining, playing a way cleaner game, removing a lot of the fat, and he's just been awesome. And the fact that the Raptors went from trailing at the half to the Wizards because he kind of didn't bring it in the first half to running away with it simply because he started to try, I think it kind of says everything, right? His impact is easy when he's actually engaged, which for the most part, to his credit, he has been incredibly engaged for most games throughout most of the season in a way that maybe wasn't consistent for him night to night before. I'm not going to knock him too much for taking a half against the Wizards off, because who among us would not do that if you were, on a good team playing against the Washington Wizards, especially after a week where you played really intense games against the Thunder and the Spurs, like classic letdown potential. But I think a Scottie Barnes in years past maybe doesn't turn on the Jets in the second half and score 16 points on, what was it? Like 8 of 9 shooting or something like that. That probably doesn't happen. And I think it kind of speaks to what he's done sort of as a leader, as a player, all that stuff, as just dude who drives winning play, that he started trying in the second half and the Raptors won very easily. He's really good, and the impact stuff from him, I'm going to keep an eye on that throughout the rest of the season. Because like if you're talking about all NBA cases and stuff like that, I think the all defense case has already basically been written in stone. He's incredible. He should be on the first team. That's a no-brainer for me. All NBA is a tougher thing to make. It's only 15 spots and it's very competitive. But if you're looking at impact metrics as a way to break ties and put guys into sort of serious candidacy, that's all trending in the right direction right now for Scottie Barnes as well. He's a very, very good and impactful basketball player. We will come back on the other side and round things out, of course, with the good, the bad, and the We're going to talk about Immanuel Quickley, who is doing more with less. We'll get into why coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into a bigger payout with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read, and you can mix spreads, totals, player props to match to see the slate you're playing on a given night. And then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. I'm not much of a fan of college basketball teams, but I always find a team to kind of throw my weight behind in the tournament. It's never Duke, I can promise you that. It's never really Kentucky either, outside of maybe 1 or 2 fun years in the Calipari era. But maybe you're really in on AJ DeBansa and BYU. Maybe you're really in on Caleb Wilson in North Carolina. You want to put your weight behind one of those big prospects going on a deep run, you can go and do that. You can go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all year. It's your parlay, your rules. Head to FanDuel.com. Get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's show is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you simply have to fill is still sitting open. That is when the pressure is on, and that is when you most need Indeed sponsored jobs, which helps you reach the people you actually want to be applying for the jobs you have out there based on their skills, experience, and location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. You are putting in front of those people so they can click on it and apply right then and there. And here's a stat that'll say it all. In the minute I will be talking to you about Indeed right now, companies like yours will make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes you need checked with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Right now, just go to Indeed.com/podcast and support our show by saying you heard about it here on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Wrapping things up here with the good, the bad, and the It's how we wrap up every episode of this here podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, thing that's got me a little bit intrigued about the latest in Raptors hoops. The good, Immanuel Quickley continues the year of IQ, baby. 2 months in, and a whole lot of good from Immanuel Quickley. Really excellent in the game against the Wizards. Yes, it's the Wizards, but he was very damn good. 27 points, 10 of 15. 2 of 7 from downtown, which by my math is 8 of 8 from 2-point range. That's a big deal. 11 assists as well to 1 turnover, as he is wont to do with that assist to turnover split. Just playing a really good ball of late. Looks comfortable, looks in the flow, looks like he knows how to butter his bread. And I think, we've talked a lot about how without Poeltl this season, the Quickley experience has been a little uneven because he's missing one of the key components of his game, which is pick and roll opportunities. He's a good pick and roll guard, always has been, and they just didn't run a whole lot of pick and roll when Poeltl was hurt because murray-boyles, solid screener, but not much of a roll threat. Scottie Barnes, very good role player, but they just don't really use him as a screen and dive guy very often with the structure that they play. Mamu, way more of like a catch off the attack, attack off the catch guy, as opposed to like a pick and roll, pick and pop guy. And as a result, they just have not run a ton of classic pick and roll, but we've already seen an uptick since Jakob Poeltl got back. They ran 36 pick and rolls against the Wizards, which is well above their average of about 29.5 this season. And I think, you're seeing it. We're seeing some IQ Scottie pick and roll. That was a big part of Scottie's second half. There was some really good pick and roll action, 2-man game with him and IQ. And so I think what you saw was at the start of the year, Poeltl was kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in the context he was playing in. And now that Poeltl's back and he kind of found that comfort, before Poeltl returned, obviously that huge month of January was a player of the week at the 40 burger on the road, all that stuff. But now you get Poeltl back and the team's kind of playing in a way more sort of conducive style to let IQ shine with the things he's good at. And you're just seeing an uptick everywhere because he's now both comfortable with the uncomfortable and comfortable with the comfortable. Does that make sense? I'm a good basketball analyst. Anyway, you're seeing his rim pressure on the uptick. You're seeing his shooting 53% on his twos over the course of the season as a whole, which is kind of nuts. Considering where he's been as a 2-point shooter in the past. The floater obviously is very much back in sort of the New York level it was at before. And in the 2 months since the start of the year of IQ, 19 points, 4 boards, 6 assists, 62% true shooting, 48% on twos, 51% from deep. And they've trimmed down his playmaking burden quite a bit. He's, not racking up the sort of huge assist numbers every night. He had the 11 against the Wizards, obviously. But I think what they're doing is it's kind of a lower playmaking volume, lower burden for IQ to kind of have to create a whole bunch on the offensive end. But the situations they're putting him in when they do ask him to create are better for him, and they are conducive to him putting up big assist totals and being a creative passer. I think we saw in that Wizards game, we've seen it really over the last while here, where he's just his rim pressure, his paint touches, they're deep, they're drawing help. He's kicking and spraying for really high quality 3-point looks out of those. He's obviously doing a lot to score on his own. His threat as a floater guy, as someone who now is busting out counters as he did against the Wizards, where he'd stop, pick up his dribble, pump fake. Guy's off his feet. Okay, I'm just going to do the nice little 1-2 step through around you and score. There's some craft and some counters being thrown in here for IQ as a 2-point scorer as well. The mid-range has been a career best mark for him all season long. And he just looks so much more comfortable. And I think the passes he's throwing are leading to high quality looks, whether it's threes. We saw the sort of give and go situation where he got the ball from Scottie after a cut, lobbed it up to Jakob Poeltl for a lob finish in the game against the Wizards. There were a couple just really clean pick and roll reads, quick pocket pass, finding Scottie over the top, whatever. And he's never going to be your classic, run 100 pick and rolls a game, Trae Young point guard, but they don't necessarily need him to be that on this team. And as much as there are limitations with him as your best guard, he's been damn good. And I think is, kind of quieting a lot of those concerns, at least for now. We'll see about the playoffs. We'll see how they kind of go with the guard position going forward. But he's been really good. Year of IQ. It's a thing, man. He's playing really good ball. And I think having Poeltl back is a huge deal. And we talked on Friday, if you haven't heard it, myself and Wolfon went on a tangent about the defensive uptick he's shown this year as well. He's just been a good all-around basketball player, and it's been nice to see him have a really good run of sustained success here over the last couple months. It's bad for Gradey Dick that he's just totally out of the rotation now. Jamison Battles just like cemented that spot at this point as like the 10th guy in the rotation. If you can't get in against the Wizards, like you're kind of in a bad way. And look, Grady's close to the season was one of the more interesting things to watch down the stretch, I think, with this team, considering the potential implications of him figuring it out versus continuing to kind of flatline like he has this year. Like if he figures it out, he's extension eligible next year. If he kind of makes himself an indispensable part of the core, then that changes things seriously for him and his long-term outlook with the team and in the NBA. And the way he's played and the lack of threes going down and the fact that he's now been benched, it's very much going the opposite way. And at this point, I would not be at all surprised if the Raptors are looking to keep Mamu this summer or just have a little extra flexibility on the books. They've kind of chosen Jacoby Walter as the backup two guard of the future. I would not be surprised if we saw Gradey Dick get the Davion Mitchell treatment from a couple of years ago with the Kings, where the Kings paid a second-round pick to get off of Davion Mitchell's rookie-level contract just to save some money. I would not be surprised if we see something similar with Gradey Dick. And that's not to say that I don't think he can kind of have success somewhere else someday, but it's looking pretty rough right now for Gradey. And the fact that he's just like totally out and not playing against the Wizards is not the greatest sign for him, which, hey, rooting for him, man. He's a fun player when he's on, but it just, as Darko's talked about, it's like a results-based thing. Like you got to play well. You got to hit your shots. And if you're not going to, like other guys are going to take those minutes. Bonus bad, by the way. What the hell are the Wizards doing with the gold uniforms again? I thought we all agreed these sucked 20 years ago. Why are we hearkening back to the Gilbert Arenas, Javaris Crittenton, Andre Blatch days? I don't know. I don't want to see it anymore. Gold jerseys, they're not good. And that goes for OVO joints as well from the Raptors end of things. Look, quick standings check here after the weekend. It looks more and more like the Raptors are just going to be the 5th seed. They're pretty clear right now, the 6 to 10 zone, which is getting a little bit hectic. Philly's dealing with issues with injuries, Embiid missing time. Paul George suspended, obviously. Orlando and Miami are just like kind of haplessly warding off Charlotte, and now apparently the Hawks, who have won 4 in a row. Norm Powell's hurt. Orlando's still just being Orlando. Still no Franz Wagner. Still losing games in increasingly demoralizing fashion. Seemingly every week or half week. They had 2 nasty losses this week. Like, the strength of the schedule for the Raptors doesn't look nearly as daunting as it did before they knocked off the games against the Thunder and the Spurs this week either. They have the 14th toughest schedule left. They're 3.5 clear of the Magic in 7th, 5.5 clear of Charlotte, who's like playing the best of any of these teams by a mile. And, with how well Charlotte's played, it's still a reminder, since the start of December the 1st, the Hornets have cut into the Raptors' lead on them by 2.5 games, despite winning seemingly every game in that time. And so, yeah, the cushion feels pretty good. 5th seed seems like it's what it's going to be. And, I'm starting to turn my attention to the 1 through 4 jockeying, as opposed to worrying about, is one of these teams going to catch the Raptors? Because I just think the Raptors are more solid than these teams. They're healthier. They're in a better way. They have Scottie Barnes, who is fantastic, and outside of Tyrese Maxey is probably the best player on any of these teams. And so, yeah, it's looking like the 5 seed. There's nothing, sure, knock on all the pieces of wood, whatever, but like, as it stands right now, that cushion's looking pretty good, and seems like it's only going to continue to widen here as the Raptors still have some, they have some tough games still. Knicks this week, Wolves this week, but a lot of stinkers still on the calendar as well for the Raptors to pad that win total. And I'm more interested in, are they going to push for 50 wins than are they going to, lose a spot in the standings to one of these teams behind them. And I think it's like 6 through 10 is going to be just like a very ugly, fight between a lot of flawed and busted teams plus the Hornets. And I'm glad the Raptors are out of that. It seems like the 5th seed is likely where they're going to end up, and you kind of figure it out from there. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. We'll be back again on Tuesday, likely with our pal Big V along. We'll take a look at the Knicks game on Tuesday, that matchup, which has just been a thorn to the side of the Raptors for a very long time now. We'll get into that. And we got lots of other fun stuff this week. Joe Wolfond is not on this week. We'll find some fun guests, though. There's a game against the Wolves. We'll talk about the game against the Knicks on Tuesday night, on Wednesday's show, all that good stuff. And Katie Heindel will be back from Japan at some point. Either way, Thank you so much for supporting the show, following, subscribing, rating, reviewing. Join the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. Always free to join there. You can also sign up for the Everydayer Club, $5 a month. $50 for the year gets you ad-free episodes of the show, plus access to our Locked On network-wide Discord. Lots of fun. And we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for hanging. Bye-bye. Ew, not even close.